Hello, brilliant souls, and happy Tuesday. Welcome back to our conversation about asking and the bridge from your dreams to your destiny. I'm super excited about doing this with you because this book has been so meaningful and so helpful to me. And I am excited because I know it's going to be as helpful for you as it's been for me. But I kind of want to ask you for a favor before we start out. If you do start to watch this video and you could click that like button, that helps me know that you've actually seen the video and you're finding this of interest. I want to make sure that I'm putting out material that is meaningful and helpful for you guys. I don't really want to necessarily just be doing this for my benefit, although it's great and I love it. I enjoy it. I can read this on my own time, right? I want to make sure that I'm getting content and information out to you guys that you want, that's helpful, right? And so if you hit that like button, then I know, okay, this is something that you're interested in. Even if you can't hop on live, you might be able to go back later and get some gold nuggets from it. And I can tell you that there is a lot of amazing information in this book, and I know it will be helpful for you if you have the opportunity to even listen to, some snippets. So, and I thank you for that. And if you do get something out of it, then please do share it. And I appreciate that as well. But without further ado, I want to jump in because there's so much that I want to go over, as we go through this. And so I want to make sure I'm making time for that. That's really my priorities. So we left off talking about this idea of embracing the asking journey, right? And what it means to ask questions. And really how a lot of us just haven't been trained to do that. We're not brought up in a way that encourages us to ask questions. And so it's really something a lot of us have to learn to do. And I think even coming to the understanding of that is important because oftentimes we sort of go about our lives in the same way that we always have, right? We're just kind of repeating the same motions or patterns over and over and over, and we don't necessarily put as much thought into them as maybe we could. And so what I love about this book is that it really encourages us to kind of think about some things in a different way. So where we left off last time was talking about what your expectations are for your life, right? And I kind of gave you a list of things to consider over the last week. So the next thing I want you to start with this week is consider your expectations for others. And so I'll give you some kind of hints as to how you can do that. So number one, if you're open to someone else providing solutions and assistance to you. Number two, the belief or lack thereof that people are each other's greatest resource. Hopefully we're going to be a resource to each other in this group, right? I mean, ideally that would be the case. And that's really the purpose of these groups, is not necessarily for me to just sit here and talk at you, but for you to get benefit. And hopefully it's not just, me that is here interacting, but that I'm hearing back from you, because the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to benefit you. And when I hear back, then I know, okay, I'm doing this the right way. I'm helping people. Number three, if you have embraced and implemented healthy boundaries or not. And, this was something that was challenging for me in my life. Another really important book that I read at one point was called Boundaries by Dr. John Townsend. And that was a really valuable book for me because that was something I really needed to learn more about and to learn to implement in my own life. Number four, your willingness to accept that no single person has all the answers, right? No one's out there that's the expert of all experts. We're all learning along the way, and 99.9% of the time, most of what we know, we're getting from other sources anyway, right? We're just passing on what we've learned. All right, number five, if your heart and emotions are in alignment to foster healthy, happy relationships. Number six, your own vulnerability or lack of it when asking for your needs to be met in relationships. And number seven, if you look for ways to succeed in relationships or brace yourself for failure. I really like this last one because I don't think we're necessarily conscious of this often. And so it kind of encourages us to think, okay, how am I trying to succeed in my relationships right now? How am I being purposeful about that? And then, really examining that, really being honest with ourselves, really being willing to kind of dig in and go, okay, well, what are some things that I can do differently or better? And then finding the resources that we might need too, because sometimes we don't have the answers, right? Sometimes we may not know how to do it better or different. And so then taking the initiative to go ahead and start to figure that out is really important as well. All right, so then third, we want to also consider our highest potential and service to humanity. This is another thing that is really important for us to start asking questions around. And here are some ways we can do that. Number one, we can consider that there may be limitations we're putting on ourselves, which I think we all know we do that. I don't care how many mindset books you've read. I don't care if you're the ultimate mindset guru. There are moments when you're going to put limitations on yourself. We're always expanding. All of us are constantly expanding, and that's just the nature of life. All right, number two, that your ultimate destiny might go far beyond what you've ever imagined. I think this one is so powerful because I don't think most of us really comprehend what we're capable of. And we're certainly not taught to think in those terms, right? Growing up, we're not often told, you know what? Have you thought today about what you're capable of? Have you thought about the things that you might be able to accomplish in your life? I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't really hear that from people in my life. And so, I think that is very rare. And if you have had that, that's amazing and wonderful. But if you haven't, it's a very important thing to start asking yourself, right? To start considering. All right, number three, that your ability to create your most amazing life lies ahead of you. I think this is great because we have a tendency to look at the past and judge the future by what's happened in the past. But the reality is that has nothing to do with the results that we can have going forward. And I can take evidence of this from my own life very, very easily because I can look back 3 years and see where I was, certainly financially and in my relationships, and look at my life now and see that I am light years from where I was at that point in my life. But that's because I've done this work to get here. It's because I've looked at my mindset, I've studied what it takes to make the changes, and then I've made those changes, right? So that's how we start to create what it is we really most want and to live our lives the way that we really want to live them. Okay, so then number four, we can consider that our impact on humanity may be far greater than we've ever realized. I don't often think that we actually see or realize the effects of many of the things that we do. And, I have put out a lot of content over the last couple of years. And every once in a while, someone will say to me, you know what? You made a huge difference in my life. Your content has changed the way I look at things. It's changed the way I feel about who I am and how my life is playing out. I had someone tell me just today that I was an integral part of their journey and the shifts that they've made over the last year. That was really powerful and meaningful to me. When I hear those things from people, it reminds me, okay, I'm staying in my purpose. I'm doing what I'm intended to do. And does it always like glamorous? And does it always, am I always on the front page of Forbes? Nope, I'm not. And you know what? I don't need to be because I can be effective without those things. And I think that's important for all of us to understand. The majority of us are not going to be on the cover of Forbes magazine. And even if we are, it doesn't mean that we're somehow better because of that. We can be just as influential and just as powerful in our own daily circles and in our own spaces without all of that. Okay, and then last, so just examining and kind of understanding that your best days and years are yet to come, right? That we're always creating something better. There's always something better ahead of us, and having that as our focus. I think that's huge, huge, huge. And I mean, it's not the easiest thing to do. especially, after a year like 2020, right? Because we were all going through some craziness. And there were times when it was like, are we ever going to get our bearings? And I think we still have a little of that. I think we all still have this sense of like, what the heck is really going on, right? But at the same time, we know it doesn't, regardless, right? It doesn't matter what's happening out there. It matters what's happening in here. And this is what I can control. And when I'm doing the work around that, then I'm going to get where I need to go. So having that, in the back of our minds. So the other thing I want to kind of jump forward and share with you here. And so, I think keep in mind that when this book was written, it was written by Mark Victor Hansen and Crystal Dwyer Hansen, and really that their heart was just to help people begin their journey, to cross that bridge, to really achieve their ultimate destiny. And, if nothing else, if you need to borrow their vision for you, then do that for a little while. I think sometimes it's hard for us to have a vision for ourselves. When we've come through something really difficult, or if we're in the midst of something really difficult, it can be hard to hold that space. So you know what? Borrow it from them. They're holding it for you. Borrow that. Just go, okay, well, if they're holding that space, then maybe there's something to that. Maybe, I can look at this and listen to this and take something from it, and maybe this will work. And just start from that space. So again, if you haven't gotten the book yet, I highly encourage you to get the book, because there's so much in here that I'm not going to get into at this stage of the game, and that you'll miss, right? So I want to make sure that you're taking away as much as you can from it. But that being said, I want to go to this next really significant portion of the first chapter of this book. And the first chapter is called The 7 Roadblocks to Asking. And so I'm not going to go through all 7 of these because there's a ton of content here, but I do want to touch on the first one. And I also want to just share some of their thoughts and some of their, some of their wisdom with you. So one of the things they state right up front is the key to breaking the pattern of not asking is to always remember this. If you don't ask, the answer is already an automatic no. Okay. So it's kind of that old, concept of, what do I have to lose? What's the worst they can say? No, right? And so it's the same with ourselves. It's the same with others. It's the same with God. What's the worst that can happen? And so keeping that in mind, that it's really ultimately us deciding, yeah, I want something more. I believe that I can have something more, and I want something more. And we'll touch on that a little bit more here, because the next important point that they make is one of the roadblocks is unworthiness. It's insecurity. And they even go so far as to say it's conditioning, right? From our childhood or our past experiences that basically tells us we don't deserve better. So how many times have you really said to yourself, I just don't deserve this? Probably not very many times. But unconsciously in the back of your head, you have, and you're acting from that space, right? And so in the decisions that we make, we often will default to those old programs of, well, I'm not sure I really deserve that, or maybe that's for other people, that sort of thing. And that's where we start to get ourselves in these cycles where we're in patterns that aren't serving us anymore. And so when we can stop and really start to examine, okay, is this something that's playing out in my life? Then we can do something about it. And one of the other things I love is they tell this little story, and they're talking about this question that came to Jennifer Land, who was the daughter of Edwin Land, a Harvard student who was studying physics and chemistry. And he was an avid photographer. And she asked him one day, she said, why do we have to wait for a picture? Okay, so this was in 1943, right? That was, well before we really have cameras in the sense that we think of them now, certainly on our phones, walking around with us all the time, right? And it got him thinking, he really, it led him to study the camera and what it took to create pictures. And then, eventually, freed people from the need for a darkroom and to develop pictures. And, he did that through the use of the Polaroid. And it's so fascinating to me that, someone had just this little moment of asking, okay, well, that's a great question. Okay, out of the mouth of babes, of course, right? That's a great question. Why do we have to wait? And that's the power of a question. And I think that's what's important to remember, is that when we do ask the questions, it starts to open up this whole different world that maybe we've never even considered thinking about before, let alone really diving into. All right, so with that, I will elaborate just a little bit. And Bob Proctor actually tells a story in this book, and I know I've mentioned this before, but that's one of the powerful things about this book, is that they have all these amazing stories that go along with the points that they're making, because these are such powerful examples of how these tools have played out in people's lives in a way that has completely changed the course of their life. And if you know Bob Proctor's story at all, he really had almost no belief in himself as a young man. And he came into contact with a gentleman that he actually worked with. And as time went on, they built this relationship. And one day, he just asked Bob, he said, why do I have all these things? Why do I have wealth? Why am I happy? Why do I have all this? And you don't. Why are you so unhappy? Why do you not have this? And it really caused Bob to pause and ask himself, why don't I have those things? And then he had to dig into the real reasons behind that. So again, you have to get the book to read all these stories and to really dig out the gold nuggets from it. But I just use that to help you understand, here's the journey that you can go on when you start to ask the questions. And then these are the questions that can empower you and allow you to open new doors and to see things in your life that are available to you that you may not have ever seen, thought of, or considered before. So with that, I am going to sign off. I'm at about 20 minutes, which is about my my limit, but I will be back next week. We will go to point 2 and talk about the second roadblock. But I want you to take time this week and just think about, what is it in my life? How has unworthiness shown up in my life, or has it shown up? Maybe it hasn't for you. Maybe it hasn't been a key struggle for you. But if it has, or you think it might have, just look at that, examine that, and then start to ask the questions around it. Ask yourself, why is it that I have limited myself? Why is it that I have this sense of unworthiness? And then even asking God, show me, what is it I need to know? Or is there anything I need to know or see around this sense of unworthiness? And if it is coming up for me, if it is an issue, what's in my way and how can I remove that? How can I get these things out of my way? Those will be some really great first steps for you to take. And of course, as we go through the rest of this first chapter, there's going to be so much more to unlock, but this is a wonderful jumping off point. I am so grateful you were here. I don't know who was on. I saw a couple people pop on and off, but if you drop some comments below and let me know if you got some value out of this, that would be wonderful as well. So lots of love and light going out to all of you, and I will see you again next week. Bye, everyone.